time to Global TV Online. As usual, Job Club, it's a hot things. And now it's an exclusive interview with international journalists. Yes, I'm talking about Shaka Ssali from Voice of America. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you very, very much for hosting me.
Some of us who may be the first time to hear your voice, can you tell us, can you tell our viewers, who are you, by the way? Who is Shaka?
Very interesting. Shaka happens to be a kid from Kabale, a very small southwestern Ugandan town. That's where Shaka was born. That's where Shaka grew up to about 15. Moved on to Kampala, the Ugandan capital, did so many different things, including some of the professions that I was associated with, failed very miserably, and eventually headed for the nearest political tall grass, and that happens to be the United States of America.
And now, as we see, you are in Tanzania. Why not Kenya? Why not Uganda or Zimbabwe? What are you doing here? You came for holiday or something else for business?
Not really. The VOA management decided that Shaka should take Straight Talk Africa on the road in Africa. And we chose 3 different countries. We chose the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We chose the Republic of Namibia, and of course the United Republic of Tanzania. And the project, in fact, was looking at what you would call the democratic transition in Africa. And so we were basically looking at some aspects of democracy in the countries that we have had an opportunity to visit.
Thank you, Shaka. My question is based on patriotism. Today, patriotism has been a common phenomenon. We are, all of us asked to be patriotic. What does it mean to youngsters?
I think it means that they have to believe in certain fundamental values, and that these values must be somewhat positive. These values must provide them opportunities for them to develop, to learn, and become the best they can be at whatever they chose or whatever they want to be.
You often say information is an oxygen.
Of democracy.
Of democracy. What does it mean?
Basically what it means is that the more informed you are, the more you are likely to make informed decisions. On the other hand, if you are ignorant or if you are, information challenged, it becomes very easy for you to become a victim of other forces that, happen to run or govern a society in which you live. So information is very, very important.
Yes, as the African journalists and the environment itself, how do you see the profession itself, and what can you do to be as you?
First of all, to be honest with you, if you want to be a journalist, you have to understand that you are talking about a calling, not simply an occupation or a profession. It's a calling. Just like priests or preachers, just like teachers, just like physicians. I sometimes, in fact, describe journalism or a journalist as someone that has to combine the skills of a preacher, the skills of a teacher, the skills of a physician rolled into one. And you have to have a commitment, really. It's not simply about doing a job that is 9 to 5 so that you get or receive a salary. No, it's more than that. I also happen to think sincerely that you almost have to be an advocate of social economic justice for all of us.
Apart from that, apart from the journalism, as a serious person. So in Nora wants to know about your hobbies, lifestyle, maybe. Yes.
Well, to be honest with you, I think you are quite correct that I am a serious person.
Yeah.
Because in fact, the role that I play requires that I do a lot of research. As a matter of fact, whenever you see me performing, I have to be honest with you. Whatever I do is a reflection of the hard work, the research that I have put into it. So what does that mean, really? It means you have to read a lot. I read a lot. We're talking about books, we're talking about magazines, we're talking about academic journals, and I also have a lot of conversations with lots of people. I also sometimes, of course, go to some Kenyan restaurants to look for nyama choma sometimes.
Yes. Nice. Now, Shaka, we see most of the African countries are facing the same problem. Yeah. And that's poverty and the misunderstanding between the leaders and their people. And it's better if you cite examples of those problems and how do you address them?
I honestly think that that is a very, very important question. But I also have to say, frankly, that I have to say that if I answered that question, someone might think probably very differently from the way I answered it. So I basically say that that is a question that is above my pay grade. Well,
why are you saying this?
Because you see, when you do the sorts of things that I do and go on some of these trips, there are certain basic rules, basic understandings that you have to factor into the manner in which you interact with other people. So when they talk about freedom, freedom is not absolute. Freedom is relative. And so if I say sincerely that that is a question which I find to be above my pay grade, I think you only have to listen to me, sympathize with me, and understand me.
That's nice. And what are the challenges that you come across till you are now, like an international journalist?
Well, it depends, of course, where you are. But most of the time, of course, it is when you are in search of the truth, you have to understand that you run into a lot of roadblocks. And so you have to figure out a way sometimes how to negotiate around those roadblocks in order to accomplish your task.
Yes, Shaka, we have been reading and seeing the Western media and whatever that Africa is a black continent and everything from Africa is portrayed negative. On your view, how can you address this?
Yeah, I think that is a very, very important observation. But I also think that sometimes the people that cover Africa, a lot of times, frankly, they are somewhat ignorant sometimes. They may not understand the African culture. They may not understand the African politics. They may not, in fact, understand the history of Africa or the history of some of those countries. Others, of course, may be suffering from prejudice. It may be that they have read some kind of literature that does not really add value when it comes to looking or observing things that happen on the African continent. So that means, frankly, that the challenge is to all of those of us who happen to have opportunities to have platforms that can, in fact, inform the audience, which means that you should be the people, for example, who should be in the front line of making sure that Africa is reported or Africa is seen as simply another part of the world where people live normal lives. Because this is not simply an African thing.
Yes.
I think it is a human thing.
Sure.
Because humanity is universal. Africans work very hard, just like other people do. Africans aspire to be the best that they can be at whatever they are basically interested in. And so I think it is up to you, or up to us for that matter, to make sure that we paint or we talk about things that reflect Africa in a positive light.
Sure, we see you are interviewing the top leaders, most of them presidents.
Mm-hmm.
How many times this career has been in danger in your life?
Well, there are places, of course, sometimes where I have been. I was in a country last year to be one of the moderators of presidential debates.
Yes.
Only to be told just about 5 hours from debate time that a certain incumbent president was not comfortable with a guy called Shaka Ssali being one of the moderators. And so he actually wanted me off the panel. The organizers of the debate pleaded with him to say, okay, look, we have brought Shaka Ssali all the way from Washington. He's been with us here. We do not see, frankly, how we can possibly ask him not to be part of the debate. So the compromise was, as I was told, that the president ordered or instructed them that I should not be, for example, the lead moderator, nor should I, in fact, ask him any question.
Very sorry.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Does
it embarrass you?
I beg your pardon?
Does it embarrass you?
It is very sad that it happened. I think that I, in fact, wanted to pull out of the debate, or moderating the debate. I consulted very widely, and there are people that were very sympathetic with me, but the organizers said that it wasn't really about Shaka, nor was it about that particular individual. It was about that country's democracy. And knowing what democracy is or is not, democracy is a process. It is neither an event nor an incident. So I felt like it probably, no matter how it looked like, it was probably an opportunity for me to contribute to the democratization process of that particular country.
Yes.
And so I decided to be a guy that looked at the bigger picture, or looked at the forest as opposed to the trees which are going to fall, so that I became what you would characterize as a team player. And that's what I did.
Nice.
Was I embarrassed or what have you? Not really.
Very sad.
Mm-hmm.
On my side, I'm so proud of myself to have a set person like you, an international journalist.
Really?
To be international journalist is not easy thing, and it's not easy to reach there where you are right now. What's the difference between African journalists and American journalists?
I think journalists are basically or essentially the same, really. It's just that sometimes the issues are probably the African journalists may not have as much access as to the training that a journalist needs in order to perform their duties. An African journalist might also not have probably unfettered access to the type of quality education that one needs in order to perform their duties. But on the other hand, given equal opportunities, I honestly think that the African journalist can be, as good or as better or as very professional as a journalist from anywhere on this planet Earth. So I don't think, frankly, that you should look at it as if you are really beginning from a disadvantage. Some of the disadvantages that you encounter can also be encountered by journalists from other parts of the continent. I think that what you should do is you should try as much as humanly possible to look for ways and means of making sure that you become the best that you can be. not just, an African journalist, but a journalist, period.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.